Hey there, Mini Mind Lab explorers! Welcome back to another exciting and bubbly adventure. Today we're diving into something super fun: bubbles. Have you ever wondered why soap makes such great bubbles? Why do they get so big and round? And what makes them float in the air before they pop? Well, you're about to find out. Grab some soap and get ready to pop into the science of soap bubbles. Let's go! To understand why soap makes bubbles, we need to know what's inside a bar of soap or a bottle of soap. Soap is made from something called molecules, which are tiny particles you can't see. The soap molecules have two parts. One part loves water and sticks to it. It's called hydrophilic, which means water-loving. The other part hates water and sticks to grease or dirt instead. It's called hydrophobic, which means water-fearing. These two parts work together to make soap super special and super bubbly. Okay, so what happens when you mix soap and water? The soap molecules spread out and make a thin layer of soap on the surface of the water. When you blow air into that water with a bubble wand or your breath, the soap molecules trap the air inside, forming a bubble. A bubble is like a thin layer of soap and water wrapped around a pocket of air. It's like a super stretchy balloon made of soap. Did you ever notice that bubbles are always round or spherical? That's because bubbles are super smart. They always try to use the least amount of energy, and a round shape is the easiest way to hold the air inside without using too much energy. The round shape helps the bubble keep all the air safe inside until pop! The thin layer of soap holds everything together until it gets too dry or touches something sharp. Did you know you can't make bubbles with plain water? Go ahead and try it. Plain water doesn't make bubbles because it doesn't have those special soap molecules that can trap air. The soap reduces the surface tension of water, making it stretchy enough to form bubbles. Surface tension is like a super tight film on the top of water that usually doesn't let bubbles form. But when soap is added, it loosens up that film and makes it perfect for bubble making. Now that we know how soap makes bubbles, let's check out some fun bubble facts that might blow your mind. Bubbles are actually made of 3 layers. There's a thin layer of water sandwiched between 2 layers of soap. This makes bubbles super shiny and colorful when light hits them. The colors in bubbles come from light bouncing around in the soap film. That's why bubbles look like a rainbow when they float around. The light is splitting into different colors. Ever wonder why bubbles pop? It's because the water in the soap layer starts to evaporate, making the bubble too thin to hold its shape. Or if a bubble touches something dry or pointy, it breaks the soap layer and pop. Some animals use bubbles too. Dolphins like to play with bubbles, and fish make bubble nests to protect their eggs. If you want to make really big bubbles that last longer, you need to make the soap layer stronger. You can do this by adding something called glycerin or corn syrup to your soap mixture. This makes the bubble film thicker, so it won't pop as easily. Big bubbles need strong soap layers to keep their shape and float longer in the air. Try it at home and see if you can make a bubble as big as your head. Why do bubbles float up into the air instead of just staying on the ground? That's because the air inside the bubble is a little lighter than the air outside, and the soap film is super thin and light. This makes the bubble float up, kind of like a tiny soapy balloon. If you ever see a bubble floating up, it's because it's riding on the air currents. Sometimes you can make bubbles float even higher if there's a little breeze. But eventually, gravity and the bubble's weight will bring it back down. We all know the sad part about bubbles: they pop. Bubbles pop for a few reasons. They dry out. The water in the bubble evaporates, making the bubble too thin to hold together. They hit something dry. A dry surface breaks the bubble's thin layer of water and soap. They get too big. If a bubble stretches too far, it can't hold itself together anymore and pops. The best way to keep a bubble from popping is to keep the air around it moist and avoid touching it with dry fingers. Wow, who knew there was so much science inside something as fun as a bubble? Now you know that bubbles are made when soap traps air inside a thin layer of water, and the colors come from light bouncing around inside. Next time you're blowing bubbles, remember that you're actually playing with science. Thanks for joining me today on Mini Mind Lab. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments if you love blowing bubbles too. And if you have a favorite bubble trick, we'd love to hear it. See you next time for another fun science adventure.